we could soon know if Camelot actually existed. Arthur's Stone, a 5,000-year-old chambered tomb in Britain, is being excavated. It's named in honor of King Arthur. For centuries, people believed King Arthur was just a myth, an ancient bedtime story drenched in swords, sorcery, and sleeping knights. But everything changed when a group of scientists stumbled into a forgotten cave in Herefordshire and found something no one was prepared for: burned bones, ritual markings, sealed tombs, and a chilling truth that suggests the legend wasn't just real, he never actually left. What if Britain's greatest hero was buried beneath our feet, waiting for the right moment to rise again? The cave that shouldn't exist, buried deep in the countryside of Herefordshire, is a cave so old, so drenched in superstition, that locals have avoided it for generations. They whispered about it, called it cursed, warned children not to go near it, and for the longest time that's all it was, a story passed around in pubs and schoolyards. But in 2025, that story cracked open, quite literally, when a team of archaeologists stumbled onto something inside that sent shock waves through the academic world: fragments of burned human bone, mysterious red markings on the walls, and what looked like a sealed chamber untouched for over 1,000 years. The team wasn't even there for King Arthur. They were investigating ancient burial sites from the Neolithic era. Standard work, really. But once they started excavating this particular cave, now codenamed Project Avalon, they knew they had stepped into something else entirely. Beneath layers of soil, animal remains, and Bronze Age artifacts, they uncovered what appeared to be a second hidden chamber. This wasn't natural. It had been sealed intentionally, and it had stayed that way for over a millennium. At first, they thought it was a crypt. But the deeper they dug, the stranger it became. Burned bones laid neatly inside what looked like a primitive stone sarcophagus, beads carved from shells that hadn't been native to the region in over 1,000 years. So on a tour of some of these sites throughout Wales and England to do with King Arthur, I found King Arthur's cave, and on the walls, faint but unmistakable, were red ochre markings that, when examined under ultraviolet light, revealed patterns eerily similar to Celtic symbols of guardianship and resurrection. Now pause for a second. We're not talking about your average archaeological dig. We're talking about a sealed cave with ritual markings, fire-preserved remains, and references that line up almost too perfectly with medieval stories of Arthur sleeping beneath the earth until Britain needs him again. And the timeline, 5th or 6th century, right when Arthur would have lived if he was real. But here's where it gets even weirder. For years, folklore has said Arthur didn't die at all, that he was fatally wounded in battle, yes, but instead of perishing, he was taken to a mystical land called Avalon to recover, possibly even to sleep in stasis until Britain fell into chaos. Some versions of the story say Avalon was an island hidden by mists. Others say it wasn't an island at all, but a cave. This particular cave had long been linked to that story by locals. They called it Arthur's Mouth, claiming that on certain nights, strange sounds would echo from within. Some even said you could hear horses breathing or steel scraping against stone. But no one took it seriously until now. Oh, actually, this is a passage. Let archaeologist Dr. Fiona Lark describe the moment her team realized what they were looking at. It wasn't just the bones, it was everything around them, the way the soil had been disturbed in a circular pattern, like a ritual, the strange acoustics of the cave that amplified footsteps, and most of all, the sensation. We all had like we weren't supposed to be there. Let's break this down for a second. The remains were found in what's known as a stone cist, a kind of burial box made from slabs. These were common in the British Isles during the Bronze and early Iron Ages, but the placement and condition of the bones were unusual. They had been burned in a way that preserved collagen essential for modern DNA analysis, but not completely incinerated like a cremation. It was as if whoever buried this person wanted them to last indefinitely. And then there were the carvings. Most carvings on stone walls from that era are crude, stick figures, spiral shapes, maybe some animal depictions, but in this chamber, they found something different: symbols, runes. One appeared to depict a crown, another a sword with rays around it, and one showed a circle of figures surrounding a central shape, interpreted by some as the Round Table. Coincidence, maybe. But then came the kicker: a broken shard of a bronze plaque with Latin inscriptions, partial, faded, barely legible, but one phrase stood out under analysis: Rex Quondam Rexque Futurus, the once and future king. This is where the internet exploded. Once the detail leaked, conspiracy forums, Arthurian historians, and TikTok archaeologists went into a frenzy. Was this the literal tomb of King Arthur? Had they found the man behind the myth? Or had a later group of followers tried to recreate the legend by staging a burial meant to look like Arthur's? Of course, the scientific community urged caution. Correlation doesn't mean confirmation, they warned. But off the record, many admitted the site was unlike anything they'd ever seen. The cultural layering, from Neolithic tools to post-Roman burial techniques to medieval graffiti, suggested the cave had been reused for millennia. Each group seemed to treat it as sacred ground, as if they knew who or what was buried there. And here's something else: the cave was located not far from Arthur's Stone, a massive megalithic structure long rumored to be tied to King Arthur myths. Some say the stone was placed there to mark the site of a great battle or even Arthur's final resting place. Arthur's Stone, a 5,000-year-old chambered tomb in Britain, is being excavated. The proximity of both locations and the matching folklore has people wondering, was this entire region of Herefordshire once considered Avalon? There's also the acoustic phenomenon to consider. Tests using LiDAR and sonic mapping revealed that sounds made inside the chamber echoed back in strange patterns. A whispered phrase near the tomb could be heard at the entrance, a single hornblast amplified into something massive and hollow, like the sound of galloping hooves or armor clashing in the dark. It's easy to see how these sounds could have inspired or reinforced the myth of Arthur's sleeping knights waiting to awaken. That's right, local legend doesn't just say Arthur sleeps. It says he sleeps with his men, whole squadrons of armored knights entombed in stasis beneath the hills, waiting for a trumpet to sound, waiting for the kingdom to collapse, waiting to rise. And in this cave, the initial bone count wasn't 1, it was 13. 12 partial remains around the edges of the chamber, 1 full burial at the center. 12 knights of the Round Table, 1 king. That's when things turned from interesting to unsettling. Because the question wasn't just, is this Arthur's tomb, anymore? It became, what happens if we open it? The sealed inner chamber remains untouched as of now. Scientists are still deciding whether to break the final barrier. Some believe it could be a symbolic tomb, others think it might contain even more clues, or worse, be structurally unstable and collapse if disturbed. But the anticipation is unlike anything archaeology has seen in decades. And outside the cave, it's become a phenomenon. Tourists are flooding into Herefordshire. Locals are selling "I visited Avalon" shirts. But beneath the buzz is a deep humming tension. If the tests confirm the bones are from the 5th or 6th century, if the DNA matches someone with Celtic roots and southern British lineage, then the world may have to face a possibility it's never seriously entertained: King Arthur was real, and we just found his body. But if this really is Arthur, why was he hidden? Who sealed the chamber? And what were they trying to protect us from? The tomb they tried to erase. The idea that King Arthur was real is controversial enough. But the idea that someone centuries ago deliberately buried him and wiped away all evidence, that borders on historical heresy. And yet, that's exactly what this cave in Herefordshire suggests. After the initial discovery of the charred bones and ancient carvings, a second wave of researchers arrived: historians, cryptographers, and even forensic anthropologists. Their job wasn't just to excavate. It was to interpret, to ask one terrifying question no one had dared pose seriously before: what if someone didn't just bury Arthur? What if they buried the idea of Arthur? Let's start with the burial itself. Most kings are buried with pomp, splendor, and legacy. It was a very unstable time in his kingdom, a lot of dangers, internal dangers. Their tombs scream authority: jewels, crowns, elaborate inscriptions.